Have you ever noticed someone saying sorry, even when they clearly did nothing wrong? Have you watched them apologize for things they didn't cause? Things they didn't even control? And wondered, why? Here's the psychology behind people who apologize, even when they aren't wrong. Because this isn't just politeness. This is something deeper, something psychological, something that tells us a story about fear, identity, self-worth, and the invisible rules of human connection. Let's break it down. 1. They've learned to fear conflict. The first reason people apologize unnecessarily is simple. They're afraid of tension. Not disagreement, not argument, tension. For some, even a raised eyebrow feels like danger. Why? Because early relationships taught them that conflict equals rejection. Maybe at home growing up, a frown led to silence or punishment. Maybe love was conditional, only given when everyone agreed, calmed down, or stayed quiet. So what happens? They start apologizing as a times defense mechanism, not because they're wrong, but because they think peace is more important than being right. And here's the twist. This is rooted in times attachment theory. People who develop an anxious attachment style tend to see conflict as a threat to connection. So they preemptively apologize to keep bonds alive, even if nothing is broken. Because to them, conflict times feels times like a crack in the relationship. 2. They have low emotional boundaries. The second psychology behind unnecessary apologies, they struggle with boundaries. Big time. Boundaries are invisible lines that separate your feelings, needs, and responsibilities from someone else's. Most people can tell times that's mine, that's theirs, but some, they can't. If someone else feels uncomfortable, they take the discomfort in. If someone else is annoyed, they take the blame. If someone else wants peace, they give it even if it costs them. This is a common trait in people with times high empathy but low self-protection. They tune into other people's emotions so deeply that they lose track of their own. And so the apology becomes a reflex. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry I made it weird. I'm sorry. Sorry. It sounds polite, but what's really happening is this. They're taking responsibility for feelings that aren't theirs to carry. Because emotionally they haven't learned to say, that's your emotion, not mine. 3. They believe apologies are social glue. Here's something surprising. Some people aren't apologizing because they're insecure. They're apologizing because they times value harmony more than individuality. In psychology, this ties into times collectivist social norms. Some cultures and families teach that peace is greater than truth, group is greater than individual, smooth interactions is greater than hard conversations. To them, saying sorry isn't weakness. It's connection, it's respect, it's social lubrication. You might see it with someone saying, sorry, I'm talking so much, when you didn't even mind. Or, sorry if this is dumb, before they share a thought. But here's the twist. They're not weak. They're times relationship focused. They place more value on how others feel than on being right. This isn't accidental, it's learned social intelligence. They apologize because, in their worldview, peace is a times choice, and they choose it again and again. 4. They're avoiding internal discomfort. Some people apologize because they times hate feeling badly about having feelings. Think about it. You ask a question. They pause, then say sorry before they answer. Why? Because the thought of someone feeling uncomfortable makes their stomach churn. This is tied to something psychologists call emotional contagion. The idea that we subconsciously absorb and mimic the emotions of others. They don't just see your discomfort, they feel it. So they preemptively apologize. Not to fix you, but to fix the times uncomfortable feeling inside themselves. It's like emotional self-preservation. They're managing someone else's mood because it directly impacts their own. And that tells us something important. Their empathy isn't just outward, it's internalized. They don't want to cause any negative feeling, even by existing in the same room. 5. They have a core fear of rejection. At the heart of many unnecessary apologies is one deep-rooted fear. What if I'm unliked? What if I'm wrong? What if they leave? This fear doesn't show up as panic. It shows up as compliance. It shows up as preemptive peacemaking. It shows up as phrases like, I'm sorry if this bothers you, even when nothing bothers anyone. Psychologists link this to something called times rejection sensitivity, times a heightened expectation of being excluded, criticized, or judged. For some people, even neutral expressions feel like rejection. A quiet moment equals disapproval. A simple question equals dissatisfaction. So what do? They apologize first, not because they're guilty, but because they fear the possibilities of emotional disapproval. And that fear, though invisible, drives a lifetime of unnecessary apologies. 6. They're trying to control uncertainty. Another layer to this behavior is uncertainty avoidance. Some people just hate not knowing where others stand with them. Uncertainty triggers stress. And stress triggers survival mechanisms even if the threat is social, not physical. If someone doesn't seem mad, they might still fear they're mad. So they say sorry to clarify, to smooth, to reduce that unknown. This connects to an important cognitive bias called the times ambiguity effect. Times we prefer known risks over unknown outcomes. Not knowing your emotional state feels risky, so they apologize to gain feedback. Oh good, you're not upset. Oh good, we're okay. Oh good, we're still connected. The apology becomes a strategy, a way of turning ambiguity into reassurance. 7. They've internalized blame as a habit. Some people don't apologize because of fear. They apologize because it's times a habit ingrained over years. Habit isn't trivial. It shapes how we think, how we talk, and how we react, often without awareness. Maybe all their life they heard, "Say sorry," for everything, even if it wasn't your fault. Maybe they grew up with a parent who apologized constantly. Children mimic not just words, but emotional patterns. So they learned early. If in doubt, apologize. And over time, it becomes automatic. They don't even think, they just say it. This is where psychology meets physiology. Neural pathways form. Repetition strengthens them. And the next thing you know, sorry becomes a default phrase. A reflex, not necessarily meaningful, just habitual. 8. They're trying to be liked. Always, here's a painful truth. Some people apologize because they believe being liked is more important than being times themselves. They confuse approval with worth. They equate conflict with failure. They see disagreement as personal threat. This connects to times self-esteem and social acceptance needs at risk. If you've ever felt invisible in a crowd, rejected for being too loud, too bold, too something, you start to believe that keeping peace is how you earn love. So you say sorry, not because you're wrong, but because you fear not being chosen. This isn't healthy. It's survival, but at a social cost. They shrink, they soften, they apologize to avoid feeling unliked. 9. They're trying to fix what isn't broken. Imagine someone who walks into a room and says, "Sorry, I'm late," before you even notice they're late. Or someone who says, "Sorry for being quiet," when no one complained. This isn't just insecurity. It's times anticipatory apologizing. They're trying to fix perceived problems before the problems exist. This stems from high times anticipatory anxiety times, worrying about consequences that haven't happened yet. Instead of waiting to see if something matters, they try to soften every interaction preemptively. This strategy feels safe to them, even though it often backfires because the apology wasn't needed in the first place. 10. They want to feel in control of emotional outcomes. Here's the final reason. Some people apologize to times shape the emotional environment. It's not insecurity. It's control. Control of mood. Control of response. Control of narrative. They're not just saying sorry, they're signaling, "I care how you feel. I'm sensitive to you. I want harmony." And that's not always self-effacing. Sometimes it's times intentional social intelligence. But here's the catch. When the apology isn't needed, it diminishes the value of times real times apologies. Because if you apologize for everything, you apologize for nothing. So now, let's pull this together. People who apologize even when they're not wrong do it for one of these reasons. Fear of conflict. Low emotional boundaries, prioritizing harmony over self. Internalized fear of rejection, uncertainty avoidance. Habit. Low self-worth linked to approval. Anticipatory anxiety. Emotional control. Each has a psychological root. Each tells a story. But here's the most important takeaway. Apologizing isn't always humility. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's habit. Sometimes it's misplaced responsibility. And if you find yourself apologizing too much, here's how to know it's not just politeness. You apologize before the other person reacts. You apologize for emotions that aren't yours. You apologize to avoid a conversation. You apologize even when you don't mean it. That's not connection. That's times avoidance asterisk. So what's the healthier alternative? Learn to say things like, "I hear you. Let's talk about it. I see your point. I want peace too. Let's find it." Without diminishing yourself. Without taking blame for things that aren't yours. Because real connection doesn't need constant apologies. It needs clear communication. empathy with boundaries, and respect for emotional space. So the next time someone says sorry when they didn't need to, maybe don't correct them. Maybe just understand them. Because beneath every unnecessary apology is a human being, trying to love, trying to be accepted, trying not to get hurt, and that's something worth noticing. If this psychological breakdown resonated with you, hit that subscribe button for more insights into human behavior. Because understanding why people act the way they do helps us understand ourselves a little better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.